Let's bring on our good friend Mike McAllister, publisher of QStation.com. Mike, always great to chat with you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, and I think people are looking at the ticket thing from the wrong perspective. The right perspective is I can go see Cooper Flagg for $5. Sweet.
Yeah, right.
I don't see the issue.
It's just we just got to pound the negative. That's what we got to do.
I guess. I mean, it's also a reflection of the fact that people aren't going to games, which could be, a fan issue. And I understand the product and everything else, but,
they'll be back if they win.
Yeah, they will. They will. But, that you could. There's a whole separate discussion there about some of the ramifications of that. But we'll save that for another day.
All right, let's jump in with Saturday's game. And, it was good to see this team cap off the West Coast swing with a win and come out and play well right from the jump for once and, get the job done. As you look back on that game, just broad strokes, Mike, I mean, what do you take away from that win over Cal?
They did the opposite of something that's plagued them, which is it was a big issue. It was the reason they lost the Stanford game, starting slow. They did the opposite, started fast, and they outplayed Cal for a vast majority of that game. The biggest issue, to me was it was stunning to me to see Cal playing on the perimeter so much, Syracuse attacking the rim so much, and Cal's getting a vast majority of the free throws. I couldn't reconcile that in my brain. But otherwise, JJ did some good things, still wasn't overly efficient, 6 for 18 from the floor, and you still won on the road in a game that you basically controlled from the get-go. So I think that's a positive you take away. And I liked how they looked when they played zone as well, and, being able to spell Lampkin by throwing McLeod in there in the middle in your zone, I think is something that they could be utilizing down the stretch of the season as well.
I wanted to ask you about the zone. It was effective when they went to it. They went to it in spots and, it did its job, right? It was a different look for Cal and kind of kept them out of their offensive rhythm. Do you think we will see more of that moving forward, or do you think it's a case-by-case, situational type thing with the zone?
I think it'll probably depend on the opponent. Now you're playing the Duke team that has several shooters, and they're more talented, obviously, than what Cal is. But, I think it's something you can use. Every defense is predicated on how well you execute it, whether it's zone, man, et cetera. But if you're playing your man, then we know that Autry wants to play that, and it's not working, at least it gives you something that, hey, let's try changing this up for a few minutes and see if we can sort of stem the tide and change the momentum a little bit. And then, maybe if they start to figure out the zone, we can go back to man. But, gives you some options. I think some of the things we saw from the full court press against Stanford gives you something that when you're going into a game like you are against Duke, where on paper you're significantly, outmatched, then maybe that's something that you throw in a random couple of possessions in the middle of the first half, so to speak, just to try to, catch them off guard and see if you can create some favorable situations for yourself, create a couple of turnovers. But yeah, I definitely think that being able to switch up defenses is something that, if I'm Syracuse, I'm definitely taking advantage of that going down the stretch of the season.
And we saw that a few years ago when Syracuse went down to Durham in Cameron, and they played just like that, packet-in zone and basically daring Duke to shoot threes and hoping that they missed. Do you think we might see something like that on Wednesday? Again, this team is complete as there is in the country right now. Do you think that they may try to pack in a zone and say, okay, if you're going to beat us, we're going to force you to make some shots?
Maybe. I mean, I guess if you're trying to figure out a way to pull off an upset, hoping that they go cold from the outside as opposed to just getting everything that they want right at the rim, that probably has a better probability of happening. But either way, I mean, they're a really good team. They're shooting 37% from three as a team. They've got 4 or 5 guys who are really good outside shooters, including their 2 freshmen and in addition to Proctor. So it's tough either way. It kind of feels like a lose-lose, right? Like you're darned if you do, darned if you don't type of a situation. But I think that might be the best way if you're trying to figure out a recipe for an upset, is just kind of hope that they're having an off night from the outside and you can pack things in and maybe that gives you a chance to hang around for a while, gives yourself a chance in the second half.
All right, 9 games left in the regular season. This team sits at 4-7 in conference play. They've got Duke on the schedule. They've got SMU, but they got some winnable games down the stretch. What is like a realistic expectation in your mind for what this team finishes in terms of conference record when all's said and done?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is with the schedule, as you mentioned, there's SMU and Duke, but you've got Boston College, who you've already beaten, and they're not that great. You've got Miami, who's a train wreck. You've got North Carolina, who's been very up and down. You've got NC State, who has a worse record than you do. And then you've got Virginia and Virginia Tech, who are kind of right on par with you. There should be enough there that you should not have to worry about whether or not you're making the ACC tournament. And if you are improving, as some recent games maybe have suggested that there have been some glimmers of that maybe you can, flirt with getting back to 500 or above by the time the season ends. So it's going to take them playing their best basketball of the season for, 7-8 games in a row, whatever it is. But that opportunity is still there. And yes, obviously that's not what the goal was at the start of the season, but that's where you are now. So you try to make the best of the regular season, get to the ACC tournament, and then you never know what could happen. You win a game or two, a couple teams get upset, you suddenly get a couple of favorable matchups. You never know that if you can set yourself up for a little bit of a run there. So everything's in front of them, and I think the schedule down the stretch, other than those two games, does line up pretty favorably for them. I think getting into the ACC tournament comfortably should be, the bare minimum expectation at this point.
As we talk about this next opponent, I brought up what Dick Vitale said over the weekend earlier in the show with Paulie. He said that Cooper Flagg, in all his years doing this, 45-plus years, Cooper Flagg is the most skilled freshman that he has seen. Paulie said, well, he always deals in hyperbole, and he does, but the more I thought about that statement, I was like, well, is he wrong? I was having a hard time coming up with a player more skilled than Cooper Flagg as a freshman. Obviously, Carmelo was great, and Anthony Davis and Kevin Durant, and there's so many names that come to mind. But what do you think about that statement? And does anybody come to mind for you?
The first person I thought of was Anthony Davis, because he did everything, and I think to a little bit of a better I guess, higher level than what Cooper Flagg is. That's not to say that Cooper Flagg isn't fantastic. He is. But I think there is recency bias to that.
Sure.
Carmelo Anthony was incredibly skilled. As you mentioned, Kevin Durant. There have been a lot of true freshmen that have been unbelievable players. But Anthony Davis, with his ability to score, rebound, pass, block shots, completely dominate a game defensively, I understand Cooper Flagg can do those things as well, but I haven't seen him. I'd have to see him take over an NCAA tournament just from the defensive side, not even counting everything he does offensively, before I could put him in the same category as an Anthony Davis or even a Carmelo Anthony with the way that he took over a tournament offensively. I got to see him do something like that before I put him in that category. There's so much hype with Cooper Flagg, and they overdo it so much on ESPN and SportsCenter. I mean, he'll get a wide open transition layup, and ESPN social medias will blow up with Cooper Flagg is unbelievable. I've never seen anyone do this. Meanwhile, that happens 47 times every day across the country. And again, he's had some amazing moments. The posterized dunk over the guy at Pitt. He does a lot of tremendous things, but they overhype the basic things, and I think all of that is what fuels some of these comments about him being the most skilled freshman that they've ever seen. I just overhyped, I think, a little bit too much.
Right, Kevin Durant was better than.
I think so.
Yeah. Kevin Durant was, Anthony Davis wasn't, Carmelo Anthony was. I
think
Ben Simmons was pretty damn good as a freshman. Also, if you're going by just college, way they played in college.
Yeah. A lot of big names over the years. Everybody we just mentioned, though, it's been more than a decade, and this kid's really good, and we'll see what he does. And he hasn't had the benefit of playing in an NCAA tournament yet, so he'll get his moment, he'll get his chance, and we will see. But he's obviously very good. This team is very good, and again, look forward to see what Syracuse could do against these guys on Wednesday. Before we let you go, Mike, anything football related that you want to pass along to our listeners?
The late National Signing Day is Wednesday. Syracuse has one player of the 35 that are in their 2025 class that is not signed. He committed after the early signing period. His name is Tyreek Hill, not to be confused with Tyreek Hill, running back from New Jersey. And so he is expected to sign on Wednesday. We don't know of anyone else. There is the possibility there could be surprises, but given how few scholarships Syracuse currently has available, it's not expected as of right now. But just to keep an eye, the National Signing Day is, in fact, on Wednesday.
All right. And
only one fire Coach Brown.
well, the way it works now is he's already done all his work, right?
No.
Right.
I need to be outraged.
And obviously, I got to ask you about a prediction for Sunday. Well, Eagles, Chiefs. I know who you're rooting for. If you take your fan hat off, who do you think wins and why?
Well, I've picked against the Eagles every game in the playoffs so far, so I'm going to continue
Keep it
that
going.
because
right.
I'm not changing up the reverse jinx. And the first bad play, I'm going to tweet out that the game is over, just like I have every other play. So that's what we're going with. Listen, I think the teams are incredibly evenly matched. 2 years ago was one of the best Super Bowls of all time. Both teams are different. I think the Eagles are probably they have the biggest increase in how good they are compared to where they were 2 years ago, whereas Kansas City's a little closer to being the same. But it's two elite teams, two fantastic rosters, and I'm excited to see how it plays out.
And I will say, I know I say I don't root for teams. I mean, it's the Super Bowl. I'm not covering the Super Bowl. Everyone outside of Kansas City, I think, will be rooting for the Eagles. I know I will be. I will be rooting for the Eagles on Sunday. Mike, great stuff as always. Appreciate you coming on. Good luck to your Eagles.
Appreciate it.
All right, Mike McAllister joining us here on the show. Yes, Paul.
Before we go to break, someone in the chat said that me saying the fans will be back if they start winning is a bad take. It's the truth. It happens everywhere. Louisville fans came back.
Well, of course they will be back. Why is that a bad take?
It's completely factual.
Yeah, of course they'll be back.
The bad times will hopefully go away, whether it's under Coach Autry or not. The fans will come back. Even if they hire a new coach, those fans will come back when the new coach is here.
We've seen it with football, how bad they've been. And then Dino puts together a 10-win season, and then they're back for 1 year, and then they dip again. And then Fran Brown, and, they came back this year. No, they'll probably be back next year. And then if they have a bad year, maybe they dip again. But no, of course they'll be back.
It happens at every team.
Yeah, right.
The Padres used to have 5 people in the stands. They've been good for the past 5 years. They now have probably the best attendance in baseball.
Yeah.
The Pistons fans will start coming.
Yes.
Now that they're playing better. I watched it in Philly. Philly sells out all the time. They used to win 3 games a year, 10.